Alright, now I'm going to do my first cut, which is basically this little hand wheel, the one that I couldn't get in with my wrench, because the hole there is too small, so I'm going to try and enlarge that hole. Easier said than done. Now it's just aluminium, so it's pretty soft metal, and it took me a while to figure out. I've only got like one set of carbide tips with some cutting tools, and not all the carbide tips go in every tool, so that's the one that I think I'm going to use. But I want to say something about synergy first. You know, I have never used a lathe before. You've seen me take apart the tailstock and the carriage and put it back together. I have not taken apart the chuck. I have not taken apart the spindle and changed the spindle bearings, which I think is one of the things that really probably needs doing. So I'm flying at this really quite blind. As I've said before, you know, compared to machinists that are on YouTube like Blondie Hacks or Old Tony or Gal 42 or even Adventures with a Small Lathe or Campacola, all those guys, I'm the idiot in the basement. However, just in these last few days working on it and cleaning it and so on, I realized that machining has got quite a lot in common with shooting, with rifles, with handguns, which is something I do know quite a lot about. And the thing is, because I've lived all over the place, moved a bunch of times, had to learn a bunch of different skills, had to learn different languages and so on, what I believe is my sort of skill is that, for example, I'll give you an example in shooting, right? There's guys who do like long range shooting. They will measure everything out. They will track the trajectory of that bullet and whatever. And that stuff's important, don't get me wrong. It's absolutely important. You can't figure out where the bullet's going to go if you don't know the bullet weight, if you don't know the bullet shape, if you don't know the twist of your rifle. All that stuff's all very important. And you do need to understand that, at least at a basic level, to know where your bullet's going to drop at a certain range and where it's going to hit at a certain range. Then of course you have to understand how to use your scope, and there's different types of scope and so on. And this is a very similar thing. There are some very detailed bits of knowledge that you should know if you're going to use a lathe properly. And you know, that is absolutely the case. And I don't know any of those bits. However, let me put it this way. I shot rifles for a long time before I knew anything about ballistics, before I knew anything about bullet drops, before I knew anything about, you know, that you've got calculators now that will work out the trajectory and whatever. Didn't know any of that stuff. I just fired rifles from, you know, a very young age, most of my life. And then when I did find out about those things and I started reading up, and I thought, oh yeah, that works. And, you know, if I go to a range now and there's these guys that have got calculators and they've got the latest scope and they've got everything, and maybe in perfect conditions, and if you give them 25 minutes to set their thing up and whatever, they'll shoot better than me. They'll do better shots and longer range and whatever. But in a more realistic situation, or if you don't have the time to do all that setup, if you don't have the time to count all the clicks and know exactly how many clicks give you what range at what distance, I can eyeball it. Because I've fired a rifle so many times, I can pretty much eyeball it, and I'll just, oh yeah, that's, you know, this many clicks. Sometimes I don't even count the clicks. I just turn a little bit and I go, okay, that's, if I hit there now, I'll hit there in the next shot. And I fired like that, and I've achieved things that other people that didn't achieve at that speed or whatever. Now, if I want to get very precise, then, you know, I'll do the calculation as well and I'll work it out. But the point is, I have done so many different things that I believe I've learned the ability, or gained the ability to synergize broad concept, the so-called shortcuts. So, for example, if I'm doing a long-range shot, I guesstimate the wind, I guesstimate the range, you know, using the scope. I can get pretty accurate with that. But again, I don't have a little table in my head that I go and check. I just guesstimate because I think, oh, it's more or less this many dots and that distance, yeah, it's about this. And then I have a feel for it, as in, okay, there's enough wind, but it's hot. So I have to aim a little bit high and to the left, because that's where the wind's going to counteract that. And I'll do a decent enough shot, you know, at a certain range. I won't calculate all that stuff and I'll be on target. Now, I don't know any of those things. I haven't had any experience on a lathe and so on, but other people have. So what I'm trying to figure out here is, I mean, I didn't even know that, you know, certain carbide bits don't go on all the tools, because obviously they've got different shapes and whatever. So I just figured that out now. That's how much of an idiot I am with this stuff. But I know that for different metals there must be different sort of speeds and so on. So what I did is I looked at one of the Blondie Hacks things last night, and she had a video about how to calculate different speeds for different metals, and you know, she went through the whole way of doing it, which with a book and so on. But then she said, look, what you really want is just to you know, get these sort of bits right. And I don't know if this will show up on camera, but roughly there, if you can see, let me just see if you can actually read it. Yeah, I don't know if you can read that, but see that says steel base 120 SNM. We're doing aluminium, so base 500 SEM. Roughing, she's saying 60 DOC, 2000 RPM, and 2.5 thou for, you know, if you're roughing it, you're doing 2.5 thousand at an infinite, you know, whatever highest RPM you can get. So high RPM is good for aluminium, and you know, you can be sort of 2,500 feet. I'm going to do that by hand, so I'll just have to try and figure out what that is. And you know, you can take out quite a bit of material. That's basically what I'm going to be using, and it's just that one screenshot. So it doesn't mean that I've got it right. It doesn't mean that this will work. It might all blow up in my face. I don't know. But I am going to use the correct health and safety for this. So I will have eyeglasses on. There you go. And I am now going to plug it in, which means the fan goes out, which means I'll probably sweat like a slave. And let's see if I can't get this a bit closer. Oh, there we go, lights back on. Yeah, this should work. Okay, once again, I don't know if I've done this setup correctly, in that I've got this into the right sort of position, checked that the chuck doesn't actually hit anything, and won't for at least another good centimeter. There's the part I'm working on, and I don't want to go all the way in. I just want to go in maybe half a centimeter, and I've got enough space there. I've tightened all the gibs, so that should be okay. And I'm going to pull away from the piece. I've made sure that there are no loose items that could like touch or anything. The piece is in the chuck there. And well, let's see if it works. Start from 0, and let me put myself, maybe I'll move the camera so you can see the working face a bit more. Yeah, actually let me go from this side. That should give you a better view of it. Let's see. And possibly zoom in a little bit. Yeah, it's quite hard to because of the angle of the thing. It's quite hard to get to a there, sort of. I think that will do. Okay, let's start it up. It's at 0 RPM. In this case, it doesn't really matter which way around you're going, I don't think. I'm just going to start off at a very slow speed just to make sure nothing funny is going on. And I'm just touching there, and it's scoring a little bit of the aluminium. Okay, seems to work. So, highest speed possible. Very, very gently going in. And it seems to be cutting. Now I'm gonna pull back a little bit and slow it down. Now the reason I've stopped it is because I just want to see that what I'm doing is actually working, that I'm not gonna damage the point by going too deep. And I don't know if you can tell from this angle. I don't think you actually can. Yeah, you sort of can. Let me just see. If you can see, I'm basically just cutting a line there. It's not taking out the material from the center, and the reason for that is because I can't actually get in there. So I'm first just cutting an area around it to make this bigger, and it is quite a bit further away from the center of the hole. I really need this whole thing to be a little bit higher, and I don't have a spacer to do that. So I'm just scoring it for the moment and seeing that there is no the point of the working tool isn't gonna get damaged or go too deep. So that's okay. I can carry on. Okay. Oh, this is not very tight in there, so clearly. So the point of the tool almost came out there. Let me just tighten that back in. I don't think you can, oh, maybe you can see that from there, yeah. You know, so you can see how many schoolboy errors I'm making that like a machinist wouldn't make, and I'm not even sure this is the right tool or that I'm going about it the right way. In fact, I think I'm cutting it backwards. I think it should be spinning the other way. Yeah. No. Yeah, oh no, okay, it was in the right direction. But, yeah, I don't want to go too much deeper than this, really. Okay, sort of melted the aluminium on the carbide tool bit, I think. Probably not great. Anyway, I've done something. Don't know that it's anything good, but and there's chip spray everywhere. So one of the things that I also want to do is put a skirt there, which I know a lot of people do. So that is bitten in about maybe a mil, 2 mil, something like that. But it's not in the right place. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me just switch this off just to make sure. See, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make this hole bigger. But all I've done is I've really just scored, and very roughly. Yeah, I'm just looking at it, sorry, off camera, but I've just scored a ring around there very roughly, which is not particularly useful. And I'm also seeing that I don't have that much space. You see that edge there? If I go too deep with this and I go beyond that depth, and I'll just lose the whole part. Concentricity is probably could be a little bit better. But anyway, that's the very first cut I made. Kind of pointless. And the thing that's sort of bothering me the most at the moment is that I cannot get, let me just zoom out there. Yeah, see, I cannot get the tool face, which is that there, to be in center line with the chuck, because this is too low. I need to raise this whole thing. I need to have another spacer here, which means I'll need to get another piece of aluminium and somehow raise this whole thing. Or what I'm thinking would be even better was to build something that's got, I don't know if that would work, but something that's got a main bolt that goes all the way through to the bottom, and then locks it down at whatever angle. I don't know that I can actually make that work. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But clearly I've got a lot of things to learn. Another thing that I didn't even bother checking is whether this has got concentricity with the spindle. And I do have a point there, so when I find it, if I find it, it's in here. This would be it goes in there. You know, I have to put that wheel back on to pull this completely out the way, because it's not easy to spin otherwise. But eyeballing it, this looks alright, but you can see, I don't know if you can see actually, well you can't, but you see this point, which is supposed to be in the center of the spindle, is quite a bit higher than this. So something's not right here. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know why they would build this so it doesn't hit the concentricity there. It seems a bit foolish to me, but it's where I am at the moment. Anyway, that's it, and I'll carry on once I know a bit more. Now, of course, just because you're a good synergist doesn't mean you won't make some major, very foolish screw-ups, like leaving this off and getting all the bits of chips straight into the engine. Not great. So yeah, I had to vacuum all that up, and then I've made a little adaptation here, because if you remember, this is the bolt that potentially, when it's in, barely, you know, it has to be all the way in to clear this bolt, otherwise the chuck will whack it. And in case I do want to have to take this on and off, I don't want to have to like try and get in there and pull the whole thing out. So what I'm going to do is I've made a little gap there so that this can just sort of hook on and then I can leave this bolted in all the way. The washer was a little bit bent to begin with, but that's okay because it means it just facilitates it sliding in there and slotting on. The other ones I've left as is, so I'd have to take those bolts out, but there you go, tiny little adaptation as I go. Okay, take 2 of trying to cut this thing. Obviously it's going to be a bit difficult because I don't have the wheel to move the carriage that way, but that's the wheel I'm working on. But we'll see if I can't move that with some pliers or something. Anyway, let's and I'm probably also using the wrong tool. I think the tool I'm using is like a cutting tool, but beggars, choosers and all that. Okay. Another schoolboy error there, and I forgot to tighten the gib screws, which would not be good. It's just this is wobbling all over the place. And also this switches it off. It's not perfectly flat, I think, which doesn't help. But yeah, the spindle seems to be not concentric, which sucks. So we'll see if that's the case or if it's just me. But I think, sadly, that is an issue. I'm using the wrong key. So yeah, tightening the jib screws of the carriage. What I would call the perpendicular to the ways movement. And sadly, these bolts will probably need replacing pretty soon. Okay, let's see if that works. It's definitely chopping something off. Let's see if I get it. Yeah, okay, it is digging in quite a lot. Maybe enough that it will work. As soon as I touch the wheel a little bit, it certainly causes quite a lot of chips to come out, as I think you can see there. And of course I also forgot to put something to cover below here, like a little neat cover. Well, this is working. I'm tempted to carry on a little bit more. That's really the edge of it, because always switch off before you put a chuck in there at all. I'm tempted to just leave it here, because if I go any further in, so this is the depth of cut that we've done. It's quite deep. So from there, from the edge there, it's gone in all to there. And if I go any further, the edge of the tool is probably just going to touch there. And let's just see if I'm right, but I think that's enough, giving me enough space now that I can get to this bolt. Almost. Could do with a little bit of a widening still, so I'm going to give it one more pass. And just zoom out a bit so you can see what I mean. So the distance there now is just enough that I can almost get there, but not quite. But I need to push this carriage a little bit that way if I'm going to make that hole a little bit deeper. And since I don't have the wheel on it anymore because it's up there, I am gonna take it off for a second, put it on here for a second, and just move carriageway forward a tiny bit. Always without dropping that little part of it. And then let's just see how close that gets. Still not enough. So we'll do some more. And I am obviously doing all this by eye, not using any of the measuring scales, etc. There you go. That's gonna cause me some damage one way or another, hopefully in the good way. Take this little bit out so we don't lose it. Make sure everything is clear, and let's see if we can't this time put a little piece of cardboard there, although the damage has been done. We can't cover up a little bit of this of the waves there. This is probably too much. I may well damage the tool. I don't know. We'll see. This is the beauty of learning these things. I'm going quite gently in case I'm doing something completely wrong. And you know, I'm happy that this is aluminium, which is quite a forgiving metal. Because clearly, if this was steel, I'm sure I would have messed something up pretty badly by now. Okay, let's just see what I'm doing. Take a quick look. Let's zoom in so maybe you guys can see as well. Ah. Yes, it's definitely making another cut. So there's like a stepped situation going on there now. Try and turn this again, never do what I do. I'm trying to get this a little more of a twist. That's not going to do it. Switch that off. It's see, that's the edge of the tool is hitting there, which is not good. So I'm gonna have to push this a little bit further in. So that yeah, this should do it. Oh, see what I mean? Never leave the chuck in there, of course, because that'll fly out at you at high speed straight through your head. Doesn't feel good, I'm sure, and I don't want to experience it. So and I think this will have done it. It's not pretty, and it's certainly not going to win me any machining prizes, but I think it's functional. And where's that bolt? There we go. Let me just zoom back out. So I can now get my wrench right to the edge of that wall, which means I can turn this without having to use pliers and other fancy things. Now, what I have not done is given it a chamfer, which, according to Blondie Hacks, that makes me an animal. So I'm just going to see whether the other little tool I've got here is any good. Where is that one? Ah, there it is. Now, if I can fit this, this could end up being quite a cool little job. But don't hold your breath, because I just have a feeling about these things that you know, I'm not quite going to get this right for a while. There is another very important point that I wanted to make, which is related to health and safety and guns. Notice how, like an idiot, I would just be leaving this here. One thing that I think I'll be probably okay with is that you know, I'm understanding just how dangerous this sort of stuff is if you get it wrong. You could easily maim yourself, kill yourself on these tools, and I don't plan on doing that. So the reason I think I'm going to be alright is because I'm treating this thing like a complicated gun that I've never used before. And I think that is sort of the right approach. Now, I go in like this. Well, if I go in like this, I'm going to crash it into there. So let's go a bit out. And maybe angle it a bit. Yeah, I need to do that. Angle a bit and then come out. Okay. So that's kind of my attitude to it right now. I look at it and I think, this is a gun. This is a big, complicated gun that's going to kill you. And it's trying to kill you at all times. Because that is, you know, how I was raised and how I think about guns in a general way. You know, like I've worked with a gun for years, and when I guess this is what we'll do, by the way. I'll just talk random stuff while I'm busy putting things together so you don't get too bored. But, you know, I worked with a gun for a number of years as a security, close protection guy. And when you do that, you know, you start to understand just how, well, let me put it this way. My take on it was like this. Even if I was alone at home with my gun and, you know, I unloaded it and I left it, say, you know, on the table. I'm alone at home, doors closed, there's no one else there. I've unloaded the gun. I go for a glass of water in the kitchen, which is like 2 meters away. I can see the gun the whole time. And there's no one else there. When I come back, I would not pick that gun up and pull the trigger. I would check it to check that it's empty. And I know that sounds maybe like overkill, maybe for some American friends, but that's just how I did things. Because, you know, accidental misfires happen, accidental shots going off, because usually it's absolutely almost 100% user error. These things happen. And they happen because you forgot. They happen because you got careless. They happen because you're thinking about something else. So, but, you know, a gun has got a pretty clear intent of use that makes it dangerous. So, no, that's too far. Maybe I can adjust it with this. So, yes, I think I can. I think I can. Yeah, okay. So, I actually want to catch both. So I think I'm going to zap it in right there. And, you know, although, you know, you don't ever want to just shoot somebody for fun, of course, that's not the idea. Surely that's not the idea, right? Just saying. The point is that the purpose of a gun is pretty clear. But if you're foolish enough to think that the purpose of a lathe is not to murder you at every possible opportunity, I think that would be your mistake. I think that would be your foolish idea, your romantic idea of what a lathe is all about. Because these are murder tools. Let me make you very clear on that point. These are murder tools. They're there to kill you. That's what lathes are for. They're trying to murder you at all times as revenge for the fact that we core metal out of the earth, steal it, and use it for our purposes and pleasures. And I had done a foolish thing here. See, although this was at 0, I had not switched it off. That was a foolish thing because I was talking to you, I was distracted. I'm checking that I've taken the chuck out, but I'd left this on. So even wise man like myself makes stupid mistakes. And that's the whole point of why I was telling you this. Now, let's see if we can become human beings in the eyes of Blondie Hacks. Close enough. You know, I don't know that Blondie Hacks will say I'm a human being, but that's chamfered, baby. And yeah, I really, you know, I am gonna do the other one too. just because, you know, I don't want to be called an animal. That would wound me. But let's see what I can do with this. If I just angle it a little bit more. There we go. Although that's the limit of the tool, I think. At that point, it's going to hit the limit of the very tool. Again, notice I haven't switched it off. Again, do not ever copy me in health and safety. This is what you should do every time. Every time you go near that chuck, turn it off. And you see what I mean when I say I have to treat this as a complicated gun that's trying to kill me. Because it's not enough that it's just sitting there quietly. This thing, unlike a handgun, can switch on by itself because, you know, electromagnetic and electricity, that's like magic stuff, voodoo. And so it can just do it by itself and try and kill you. And what I've done here will horrify anybody. I've definitely chamfered these things, but I've bitten into the other one, which means that one's not chamfered. And frankly, you know, I am a Venetian nobleman, and sometimes there's very little distinction between a Venetian nobleman and a complete barbarian. So I'm thinking maybe one more pass if I can, if it works, if I can do it, maybe. And I sort of can. I think I can. Starting to work at the limit of this tool, and not really. Oh, I know what I can do. Like real machinist stuff. And that is, I can shim it. Again, don't ever do what I'm doing. I'm sure this is not correct because... Okay, this is the last pass because I'm running out of memory in my phone. And it seems to have done it. Despite my attempt, I don't think this probably qualifies me, according to Blondie Hacks, enough to separate me from the animals fully. Still a bit rough there. There's a little edge on the end there. You know, I'll call it good, but yeah, I was just saying, you know, there's a little rough edge there. See if you can identify. See, there's a little edge there. So I've chamfered all this stuff. Sort of. I mean, you can still see the lines, and there is a little edge at the bottom there, but I'm not going to hit that with any hands. And look at that. I can get right to the bottom now. So I'm happy. I've done what I needed to do, and that's it. I'll put it back together and show you the picture of the finished product, maybe with some music. And remember that problem I had with the little guard? Well, I've re-indexed it so that you can see the little holes there, and then I'll put it on. Can't do it with one hand, so I'll get back to you in a sec. And here you have the cover all working. It's not really much of a safety feature, but it helps to keep some chips out of the area. And you know, it probably prevents a little bit of spray, I suppose. Oil mostly. On that note, I got oil and grease in there, so I'm gonna switch off and oil the thing and sweep up all the chips, and that'll be the day for me. And there is the you know, roughly done, but it works, and it doesn't cut my finger when I go around, at least with the glove on. I know Blondie Hacks probably still thinks I'm an animal, but that's okay, I kinda am. Alright, that's it for today. And you know, the thing is, like all murder machines, it's a pretty looking thing, isn't it? That's the problem with murder machines. They attract you and then... well, you know how it goes then. We all know that story and how it goes.